4 games to go as the Braves' longest road trip of the season takes them from Boston to Miami. This is BPTV. Cory McCartney along with Grant McAuley. The Braves hit South Florida to face a Marlins team that's in a free fall, and Atlanta does so, Grant, with some key storylines, one in the form of a history-making rookie in Vaughn Grissom, the other in unexpected change to the rotation with Max Fried on the IL with concussion-related symptoms.
Yeah, a couple of big stories for the Braves. We saw the Vaughn Grissom story, though, make front page news in Fenway Park on Wednesday. One of the most exciting debuts that you'll see from a young player. And Vaughn Grissom helped the Braves get a sweep in Boston, one they very much needed to kind of get the nose up a bit on this road trip and have a chance to come home with some momentum as they head into Miami this weekend for the 4-game series. But we'll monitor how long Max Fried is going to be sidelined. But I just knew when he took that tumble down the first base line, that looked a little bit more severe than maybe was let on at first. So to see him land on the IL, that, of course, a little bit disconcerting because you'd never want anybody to land on the IL, but hopefully it's a brief stint for him and he's able to get back in there and back in leading the Braves rotation because Lord knows they need him the final 40 or so games.
Yeah, we had discussed this. I mean, it appeared to dodge any residual effects in the moment there. Obviously, August 6th against the Mets, he awkwardly falls, hits his head trying to throw home. We know that he's now dealing with concussion-like symptoms, placed in the 7-day IL. He was slated to start Friday's series opener against the Marlins. Atlanta will now go instead with newly required Jake Odorizzi. The move is retroactive to August 8th, so Fried could only miss one start, and it's always hard, though, to be concrete when you're talking about concussion symptoms. It's the first time in more than a year, by the way, that Fried has been on the IL, and since then, only Sandy Alcantara and Adam Wainwright have thrown more innings. No pitcher has a higher F4 since the last time that Fried came off the IL. You mentioned how big he is down the stretch here. Returning on time would put him in line to take the hill in that 4-game series against the Mets next week. And given the deficit in the National League East, Grant, the Braves really cannot afford for their ace to miss that series.
No, they cannot. And when you consider what the Braves rotation is currently trying to do, as Ian Anderson has been optioned down to Gwinnett, yes, we know we'll see him pitch one of the doubleheader games in Miami, and that becomes perhaps a little bit bigger start when you do think about Max Fried not being available in this series. But I don't want to throw too much weight onto what's already on Ian Anderson's shoulders. But when you put those two moves together, this is certainly some disconcerting news for the Braves rotation. But if Fried's able to get back on the mound for the Mets series, that would be the best case scenario and exactly what the Braves need as they do match up with the top team who took 4 out of 5 against them to start this road trip. Usually you have to wait a little while to get a rematch with a team after a series like that. So the Braves would like to be, again, coming in with some momentum after winning the remainder of their road trip and then also have their best pitchers available in a season series, I should say, between the Braves and Mets, in which Atlanta has been outpitched routinely by the Mets starting 5. So Fried's a key player for very many obvious reasons, but also in this head-to-head matchup, a guy that you definitely need in there as you try to make up ground going down the stretch of the National League East.
Yeah, it's been a weird last week or so for Ian Anderson. He's obviously going to get a start on this weekend, and that Marlins series is the 27th man in that doubleheader. But if Max Fried ends up needing to miss more time, certainly Ian Anderson would seem to be front of the line to get some more starts in terms of Fried missing time with that concussion-related symptoms. The Braves' top-ranked prospect to start the season, Michael Harris II, has put himself near the front of the NL Rookie of the Year conversation, and now the organization's newly minted top prospect making an impact of his own. Vaughn Grissom debuted Wednesday in Fenway Park, hit a 2-run bomb over the Green Monster, stole a base, becoming the first player in ALNL history to homer and swipe a bag in his first game. Grant, we all realize that this doesn't just keep happening with rookies, right?
No, it's not supposed to be this way, but I mean, I find this fascinating because, the Braves farm system during the rebuild was one of the absolute best in baseball. And then those guys started to graduate and become stars and contributors for the Atlanta Braves, whether you want to call it the height of Ronald Acuna Jr. or a guy like AJ Minter, who's helped solidify the bullpen. You look at Max Fried, you look at Ozzie Albies, you look at Dansby Swanson, you look at Austin Riley, and the case goes on and on for a handful of other players as well. But once you start to have that success, you figure in a lot of cases, maybe the Dodgers notwithstanding, the farm system becomes a little bit more thinned out. And that's what I kept hearing about the Braves farm system was that, there's just not really a lot left there, especially after they traded for Matt Olson. Well, Michael Harris, we knew there was something special there. Spencer Strider, we were pretty sure that there was a guy who could contribute in that regard. And then we started hearing more and more and more about Vaughn Grissom, a guy that is a couple of months older, surprisingly, than Michael Harris II, but is the latest in the line of Braves rookies to have a chance to really step in and play a pivotal role for the Braves. We know Ozzie Albies is rehabbing and aiming to get back in the next few weeks, but second base, after losing Orlando Arcia, made the opportunity for Vaughn Grissom it just kind of almost just appear out of nowhere. And that's just kind of how the things have gone for the Braves this year, where, the best laid plans can sometimes go wrong. But in those times, there is an opportunity for a young player. And I don't know that he's going to have the weight of the world on him as a number one prospect, but this guy, we know he can hit. He was OPSing nearly 900 this year. He was an on-base machine in Double-A. He can run. And I think this is a nice piece for the Braves in the short term and a little peek into the future, perhaps, of one of the positions on the diamond. You hope that Vaughn Grissom's going to play for a long time to come. It just might not be second base.
Yeah, I want to get into a few of those in a moment here. I found it crazy that for Vaughn's debut against the Red Sox, the Braves rolled out 7 different players in that starting lineup, all of whom had made their debuts in the majors as Braves. You mentioned Orlando Arcia getting on the IL with that hamstring injury. It was kind of surprising to see Grissom up then after just 22 games at Double-A. But you mentioned they've absolutely struggled at second base since Ozzie Albies' June 13th injury, 25th in Fangraph WAR at second base in terms of production then. So the 21-year-old Grissom obviously is a shortstop by trade. I've heard some accounts say that maybe that arm plays a little bit better at second base. And it's obviously been one historic game, but one game nonetheless. I've seen Braves Twitter with the hot take that, okay, now that the number one prospect is up and he gives the Braves an option now, if they can't re-sign free agent to be Dansby Swanson. I'll agree that you're getting to see what a guy who primarily plays the same position as Swanson operates and how he operates under the bright lights. Braden Shoemake's season-ending knee injury maybe made this a little bit easier of a decision from the Braves standpoint. But Grant, this isn't just about having the guy that could be the shortstop of the future. Really, I mean, you're taking the best available talent and putting it where it's needed. So when Albies returns, I firmly expect if Grissom is hitting like this, they're going to find a role for him. This doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what happens with Dansby Swanson this winter.
No, and I don't think that there's too many people, Dansby Swanson included, that are thinking about that kind of thing right now. I mean, sure, the Braves have a short-term vision and a long-term vision and plan, and if Vaughn Grissom, you figure, is a key player at some point in the future plans. You just didn't think that point was going to be August of 2022. So we'll see what he can do at second base. You brought up Braden Shoemake. That's a really good point because the timing of this whole thing, Shoemake gets injured last week, and then the Braves have a second baseman go down. And instead of being the opportunity for the guy in AAA who might, you think be a little bit closer to the big leagues getting his opportunity, it opened the door for Vaughn Grissom to get his. Now, I've gotten a lot of feedback on Vaughn Grissom on Twitter, and all of it is very positive. But I've seen everything from, well, maybe you just move him to third and move Austin Riley to left, and then you release Marcell Ozuna. Maybe you just give Grissom all the at-bats at DH. I mean, there's a lot of different theories and different ways. I'm sure the Braves will try to balance out and figure out what's the way that works best for the club. While it is great to, as they say in wrestling, fantasy book, or perhaps, just figure out the ways that you would like to see the team run. There are a lot of different dynamics that are going to be in play. But the bottom line is this. The Braves felt like Vaughn Grissom was capable of helping them at the major league level, and that's why they called him up. And if we saw anything in the first game that kind of validates and verifies that fact, it was a number of different things. It's the way he runs the bases. It's the fact there is power in that swing. I think he's going to be fine at second base. It doesn't mean he's going to be the defender Ozzie Albies is, but you don't need him to be that long-term because you hope to have Ozzie back sooner than later. So those are all things that are good. Whether Vaughn Grissom plays at shortstop or left field or second base or wherever it ends up being his long-term position, this is a guy that I do think that everyone has been clamoring to see and is excited to get at least a preview of the talents that he has as you move forward and project, who's going to be a part of this Braves team over the next 5, 6, 7 years. We talked about long-term extensions and guys who are, locked in for the Braves for quite some time. We know the Dansby Swanson saga is out there, but I do think that this Vaughn Grissom call-up is exciting and it kind of unlike a lot of other call-ups that we've seen. Michael Harris came up because the Braves needed a center fielder. There really wasn't a debate about who was going to play center for the Braves. Michael Harris became the answer to that. Vaughn Grissom's story is a little bit different, though, and it's kind of fascinating.
And I just love the fact that they didn't go out and go with another veteran. Obviously, they tried the Robinson Cano thing. It didn't work. And instead of going out and just trying to get somebody to fill a hole, they went with the potential of what a prospect and the top-ranked prospect in the organization could do. And certainly, a historic, as I mentioned, debut there from Vaughn Grissom. Turning to this weekend series against the Marlins, and with Fried on the IL, the Braves pitching plans for this 4-game set: Jake Odorizzi on Friday, Ian Anderson and Spencer Strider in Saturday's doubleheader, Charlie Morton on Sunday. Miami is absolutely struggling. They've lost 9 of 12 since the start of the second half, are 26th in weighted run created plus. That lineup just been hit hard by injuries. No Jazz Chisholm, no Jorge Soler. The Braves will not see Sandy Alcantara in this series. All that to say, Grant, with arguably the toughest homestand of the season to follow with the Mets and the Astros, the Braves have got to keep building up that momentum that they started in Boston.
Yeah, this is a recipe for you need another series win. And if you are going to falter at times, which is going to happen to clubs seemingly, except for the New York Mets, who don't seem to falter very often, to great credit of what they've been doing this season, the Braves really can't afford to give away any games while the Mets are busy winning somewhere else in some other city. And then, of course, you get to the head-to-head battle and the importance of that, which we've talked about time and again here on Battery Power and on From the Diamond on 92.9 as well. So I look at it like this. You close out this road trip the best that you possibly can. You get yourself lined up, and then hopefully the Braves team that we have seen by and large this season starts to show up and show the New York Mets that there is going to be a fight on their hands down the stretch. But I can tell you, the New York Mets, I mean, there are not a lot of holes in this team. They're playing with a great amount of confidence. They're much better managed this year, and they are pitching like a team that has aspirations of getting deep into October as well. So it's a pivotal road trip for the Braves in that it was their longest of the season. But Brian Snitker's club is always, we concentrate on what we're looking at right now, then we turn our attention to what's next. But I think everybody knows, everybody's aware, whether you acknowledge it or not, the New York Mets are waiting for the Braves when they come home to Truist Park, and that is going to be another crucial series as the Braves attempt to climb back up in the standings and really, truly make a run towards being the National League East champions for the 5th consecutive year, which they'll all say is the first step toward the bigger goals that we have. And we saw the biggest goal accomplished last year.
As we have to when discussing the Braves, Marlins, and being in Miami, I think you have to squarely put your sights on Ronald Acuna Jr. in this one. A 950 OPS, 166 weighted run created plus here in the month of August. He has a 1208 OPS in a handful of games at Lone Depot Park already this season, over 1,000 in his career. I expect him to show up and show out with a now Acuna a little bit more back in what we've seen of him going against an opponent that he loves to rake against.
Yeah, I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. and the Marlins is a storyline that kind of writes itself at this point. But in terms of the on-field production and not some of the other theatrics that have gone on around him, it's also good to see the fact that this road trip has been a lot more of the Ronald Acuna Jr. that we've come to expect. And, of course, him playing like the player that he expects to be. No, there haven't been home runs by the handfuls, but the line drives are turning into base hits. He's running the bases well. He's making great plays in right field, which is awesome to see. And he did hit that absolute tank job to center field in the Mets series, which gets you feeling like those big moments when they start to show up that Ronald Acuna Jr. can catch fire. And if he wants to just be an on-base machine for a while at the top of the order, the Braves are not going to argue with that. If those home runs start showing up, then you start seeing this guy go, as I like to say, supernova and really become, the superstar that he is. But it's just been a bit of a long road back in that knee. I thought it was fascinating that he did talk about sometimes the knee just doesn't feel quite the same game to game, and it's just something I have to deal with. About the time he made those comments, he went out, had that good series against the Mets, even though the Braves lost, and continued by picking up some base hits and doing some good things in Boston. So hopefully seeing the Marlins, this team that he's familiar with, going on a rampage against would be another thing, another step in the right direction for Ronald Acuna Jr., and just have him as absolutely red hot as he can be as the Braves and Mets meet again next week.
Well, we have you covered with all things Braves here on BPTV. So if you've not already, subscribe, hit that notification button so you get an alert each time that we drop a new episode. And of course, you can find us on Sunday nights on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta from the Diamond, also available wherever you find your podcast. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley, and we'll see you soon, Braves Country.